And joining us tonight to discuss the budget and his priorities for the upcoming session of Congress is Representative Aaron Schock, a Republican who represents Illinois' 18th Congressional District, which stretches from north of Peoria to south of Jacksonville and around Springfield. Congressman Schock was recently selected to serve on the House Budget Committee. Welcome back to Chicago Tonight.
Thanks, Eddie. Good to be with you here. Thanks for having me.
So you were one of the yes votes on this budget deal, bipartisan budget deal. What did you think of this document? Was this the best that Congress could do?
Well, I think it was a good bill, and I think when you have divided government, you have to accept the fact that there will be no perfect deal, there will be no perfect bill. Certainly you had some conservatives on my side of the aisle that wouldn't vote for the bill because it wasn't pure enough. You had Nancy Pelosi and Elizabeth Warren opposing the bill on the Democratic side, but you had Barack Obama and Harry Reid supporting it along with John Boehner and other Republicans. So I think at the end of the day, it's what the voters have asked for, which is compromise, which is negotiation between the two sides. And if we're going to get things done next year, I think it's a template for how congressional Republicans are going to need to negotiate, and likewise the president is going to have to give and take in order for us to get things done for the taxpayers who elected us.
Aren't the taxpayers, though, asking for more comprehensive and more long-lasting measures? Again, this one is only going to fund the government through September, and again, who knows what's going to happen between now and then. It's one more stopgap measure.
Sure. Well, it is a budget that completes the fiscal year till September 30th. I am one pushing for congressional reforms that allows for a 2-year budgeting process so that we can focus on some of those longer-term problems that have festered for too long. I share that frustration as a younger American that we keep kicking the can down the road, particularly on our entitlement programs, that really are in question of whether they're going to be there not just for today's seniors, but quite frankly for my generation and generations to come. Social Security and Medicare are on the road to insolvency if we don't make some changes to keep them fully funded. Likewise, our country's losing the competitive edge on jobs. We look at Walgreens here in Illinois looking to leave the country. Others around the country have left the United States because we have an uncompetitive tax code. Our regulatory system puts us at a competitive disadvantage. We used to be the leader on medical devices, for example. Now more medical devices and innovation in medicine get implemented and introduced in Europe because the EU has a more efficient process than the United States. So there are definitely some things we need to do on regulatory and tax reform long term that this budget doesn't deal with.
All right, so now the Congress will be dominated by your party, and of course President Obama will have to deal with that. Do you think that there will be more activity, that there will be more bipartisanship, even though there's going to be some very divisive issues?
You know, I do, because I look at how the House of Representatives has acted the last 2 years, and I will tell you, when I served in the minority, my ability to offer amendments to bills was pretty much non-existent. The House under Republican leadership has offered much differently. We've passed in the last 2 years 380 bills through the House that were bipartisan, 380 bills that got Democrat and Republican votes. The Senate, however, the last 2 years only voted 21 times in 24 months. So when people talk about a do-nothing Congress the last 2 years, I think it's important for voters to understand and taxpayers to understand the House has been very busy passing legislation. The Senate really has been the stopgap from getting a lot of these bills to the President's desk. My hope with the Republican Senate is not that the Republican Party is going to get everything they want. President Obama will ensure that's not the case. My hope, though, is that we can get some of these bipartisan reforms through the House, through the Senate, and to the President's desk so we can begin to negotiate to solve some of these problems.
The criticism of the President in involving Congress is that he does not schmooze like presidents used to do or previous presidents have, that he mostly stays in the White House there. What is your relationship with the President?
Well, I think it's the same as many of my colleagues. Most of the events that I've attended at the White House have been more formal events. I did not serve in the Congress. I came in with the President in 2008. I think I have a cordial relationship with him, a friendly relationship. But my colleagues who served much longer, that served under a Clinton or even a George W. Bush, say, look, we used to go over there for a movie night once in a while. We used to go over and watch a football game. And while you may think that's not that important, just in your own personal working relationship at your job, you know, that camaraderie, that sense of personal relationship is important to getting the job done.
And you don't feel that you have that camaraderie as a member of the Illinois delegation to phone up the White House and say, Mr. President, I'd like to be invited over for pizza as a member of the Republican Party and from your state.
Well, I'm not sure that anybody should invite themselves over to someone else's home, whether you're the President of the United States or whether it's just someone down the street. That's incumbent upon the person to invite you to their home. But what I would say is that I think my relationship is similar to everyone else's. In other words, I'm not the guy getting left out from the parties. The fact is the president just doesn't do as much socializing. I think those who, whether it be a Bill Clinton and others who've tried to advise him, it is, look, lean in on this position. The president's a very likable guy, whether I agree with him on all policies or not. He can do this job better than he has if he would spend some more time cultivating those relationships. To get immigration reform dealt with, to get tax reform dealt with, he's going to need to do that.
Well, let me talk about immigration reform, because one of the provisions in this budget that was passed only funds Homeland Security through February. And the reason that is because Republicans want to defund the president's executive order on immigration, and they will do that through Homeland Security. Why are you doing this?
Well, we don't believe that the president legally has the authority to act unilaterally. The president himself said over 20 times that he couldn't do that which he just attempted to do through executive order. And Harry Reid and Democrats in the House and the Senate agreed with us, which is why they went along with the short-term funding package on Homeland Security, because Democrats in the House and the Senate know that whether they agree with a president, Republican or Democrat, it's important to the constitutional authority that we have when we take our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution, that we have a responsibility to protect and defend the legislative branch's authority. And it's the legislative branch's authority to pass laws. Regardless of whether or not the president likes the speed at which we pass laws, whether he agrees with the laws that we pass, his job is to execute those laws faithfully, and we don't believe him unilaterally drawing up legislation through an executive order is the proper way to solve these problems.
You have said that as part of the Budget Committee, you're going to bring Midwestern fiscal discipline to the proceedings. What is Midwestern fiscal discipline?
Well, that means that you only spend money that you've got. And certainly, the hardworking taxpayers that I represent in Central Illinois are willing to pay their fair share of taxes, but they also expect those who are elected to represent them to make sure that we don't keep driving ourselves